So welcome to Wild Mama Voices. I am Tiff, and I'm the founder, the CEO of Wild Mama. I started this whole thing. And Wild Mama's mission is to facilitate the healing and wholeness of mothers through reconnection. Reconnection to ourselves, reconnection to each other, and reconnection to the land. And so we created Wild Mama Voices in order to amplify the voices and stories of mothers. There's a false narrative out there about what it means and looks like to be a mother. And so the only way to actively change that is if we tell different stories. So that's our whole intention of being here, is to tell different stories, to own our own narrative, so that we can make the changes that we want to see in the world. We really believe at Wild Mama that mothers are the roots of the earth, and if mamas are well, we're all well. So thank y'all for being here, and thank you for just supporting and showing up and making space for yourselves and for each other. And thank you, Dee, for being here. Before we get into our conversation, I'm just going to explain what is here in the middle of our circle. For mamas who have been here before, no pressure, but do you remember what season we're in right now and what direction it's associated with? D? North, yeah. So this is the sacred medicine wheel, and in Wild Mama and everything that we do, we align to the sacred medicine wheel. Which, in our African culture as well as our Native American culture, there's different variations, so there's not a one-size-fits-all. So I took from my cultures and I adapted it to create the Wild Mama alignment wheel, because we really believe that if, as mamas, we realign to the natural rhythms and cycles of nature, it helps us to realign back to our own natural rhythms, right? So it informs us. And so this is just kind of our basis for everything that we do. And so every time we gather in this space, I just remind everyone what the directions are, what they kind of stand for. And over time, as you attend and gather together, hopefully it'll start to stick. And it's something that you can bring into your own life. Okay, so I'm going to start with the top, the middle, and the bottom first. These are our three core pillars, right? This is above, which is associated with grandfather sky, and it's all about vision. It's all about perspective. Who here gets caught up in the day-to-day and the weeds of mama life? Anybody?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's why we need grandfather sky. We need vision to help take us out of the muck of the day-to-day and get a bigger picture perspective. The bottom there is below, and that's associated with grandmother earth. And grandmother earth is all about your roots, right? So who here sometimes feels like they're scattered or floating or like kind of not sure where your grounding is? Usually that's because of your values. So sometimes we don't really think about our values in terms of something that we can choose. We often are living by inherited or default values. But our values are things that we have to choose, and that's where we can really find our deeper roots, right? So that's where your pillars are, that's where your roots. If you don't feel grounded, come back to your values. That's a way to kind of root yourself. And then the center is all about your whole you, right? It's where all the directions come together. And this is where our life force resides, and also where we find peace. Right, so we're all about mamas being whole. And in this society, we're really taught to be fragmented. And so we're really intentionally trying to teach a different kind of way to help make us whole. And then we have the north, the south, the east, and the west. And so right now we're in the season of winter time. And so that's associated with the north, and it's all about death and rebirth. It's all about letting things go, releasing, so that we can intentionally make progress. Because I don't believe that you can make progress if you don't intentionally let go and let die, right? Not an easy process, but a necessary one. So we're sitting in the north these days, and then in the east, that's associated with spring. It's when the sun rises, it's the new year, and so actually next month is our event is going to be on the spring equinox, when spring begins. So it's the real natural new year, not the Gregorian calendar new year. And so we'll be making vision boards next year. It's going to be a mess in here, and it's going to be great. So next month we'll be doing vision boards. And then the South is all about summer. It's about just experimentation and practice, learning how to show up for yourself. We really align to imperfect action. That's a core value of Wild Mama. And then in the West, it's all about purpose. It's all about being in the West and experimentation and discovery and living and centering in your purpose. And at Wild Mama, we believe that your purpose will always be to align to the energy of your soul. Whatever that is, whether that's I need pleasure and rest right now, or maybe it's I gotta build my soulful global empire. Whatever it is, right? But your job is to always be in integrity with the energy of your soul. That's what we believe our purpose is. So this is the Wild Mama alignment wheel based on the sacred medicine wheel. And yeah, enjoy this. It is here to serve you. All right. Thank you for listening to that. Hey, D.
Hi.
Are you ready for some conversation?
Yes, I am.
Okay, I of course have to read something I wrote for D. And then we are going to get started with this conversation. So I never introduce people in the traditional way because we just don't operate traditionally. So I'm so honored to welcome my sister, my friend, my soul confidant, and fellow Wild Mama back, but this time to highlight the remarkable life and journey that she's had. We see Kahnma today as an artist, a musician, a singer, a community builder, creator, and mama. But what's the journey that brought her to this moment? What trials and life challenges have shaped her? What values root her? What allows her to be so resilient, vibrant, and grounded? What gives her strength and courage to show up every day? When we are willing to sit in circle as we are today and quiet our minds enough to reconnect with one another, we are presented with the gift of seeing ourselves in each other. D, you teach me a lot about our humanity and inherent goodness. I truly am so grateful that you have so graciously given us the gift to learn to be more of ourselves by watching you be so much of who you are. To have the opportunity to learn from you, witness you, and uncover the rich story that lives inside of you. It is such a privilege to call you my friend and sit beside you today. This is one for the books, y'all.
Oh my goodness, what an introduction. That was beautiful.
I love you.
I love you too.
I'm so excited.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you all for being here. Yes, so we're just gonna have conversations?
Yes.
All right.
Yes, you know I got questions.
Yes.
So Dee went back to Liberia, and before she went back, a couple months ago for the first time?
Right, last year in July.
Yeah, last year in July, and then again this year.
January, yeah.
Before she went back, it was kind of just a story that I had heard, like a little bit here, a little bit there. And so I'm really stoked to kind of uncover more of the story. So we see you now as like an artist, a creator, a singer, a stylist, a beauty queen. But where did you begin? So can you take us back to Liberia, where you were raised and born, and just share a little bit about that?
So, wow. I always say, I have such a story. I come all the way from, Liberia, and I'm here in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. It takes a lot of journey to get here, right? And, I would be talking forever. Nobody would talk if I would share my story with people that I meet. So I made it a rule, and I said, I'll only tell my story to people who ask. Right? Because it's you want to know. So now I'll tell my story to people who ask. So I was born in Liberia. that was, like I said, my mother, you guys saw on the thing. She has 12 children. I'm 11. I'm number 11 out of the 12. By the time I was 10 years old, there was a civil war that started in Liberia, and we kind of migrated to the Ivory Coast and was there for about a year. And then I already had one of my older sisters, two of my older sisters living in the States already. So my sister came to the Ivory Coast and adopted myself and 4 of my other siblings, and then brought us to the States, right? So that was my beginning of coming to America. So we landed in New Jersey, and I lived in New Jersey for a little bit, then we moved to Pennsylvania. And then by the time I was like 18 years old, you know, I wanted to explore. You know, the States was too small for me, I guess, so I ended up on an island in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. But yeah, so that was the beginning. I mean, there's so much in there.
Yeah. I kind of want to hear a little bit about like what you remember from your childhood.
Okay, so this last time when I went to Liberia, it was great because, I mean, the first time I went, it was 32 years since I left Liberia. It was the first time I went back when I went in July. And I was when I got there, I realized that everything that I have forgotten about myself was the only thing they remembered of me. Right? So, yeah, like how I was as a child, like, you know, I have a 10-year-old, I have 2 kids, a 10 and a 14-year-old. My 10-year-old is a freaking crybaby. She was a crybaby from day one, and just like this intense energy about her. And I always wonder, like, where'd she get this from? And, you know, and like all the aunties that were greeting me when I came, it's like everything they told me was like exactly how she is. My 10-year-old, right? That spirited energy, that crying, that, you know, need to get something out, the voice. So that kind of stuff was being reminded of. I was being reminded of. It was like things that I've had in my dreams that at least I thought were dreams, or I would dream about buildings and can't place them, right? And then when I got there, I would drive around and it's like see the building that was in my dream. That does something to a person's spirit when you think something that you thought was a dream is a reality. This last time when I went back, I ended up, you know, staying in a house with my childhood friend, who's also my cousin, and another childhood friend, and it was just all these memories of like songs we used to sing and the kind of playing we used to do, and just this simple life, you know, growing up. I didn't know anything else, and that's all I knew. And like coming out of Africa at such a young age, being ripped out of Africa at such a young age, like there's almost like this disconnect that's been happening my entire life until I went back, and it was just like this remembering of myself when I went back to Liberia.
Do you feel like the disconnect was a trauma response or coping, or like what do you feel like was the reason?
You know, I think it was trauma. You know, war is not pretty. You know, I only spent a year in the war, but I definitely experienced things no 10-year-old should experience. And then you get jumped in, you know, just dropped in America, and then I got faced with like American things, you know. People were like talking about my skin color when I just survived war, you know, and it was just like, so it's hard to be thinking about war when it's like now you have to survive in America, right? So it was easy at some point to just like, well, I'm here now, let me just shut this part of myself out. But interestingly enough, like when I went back in July, like there was moments where like memories, I started remembering things like really clear, really vividly. And I was like, okay, there's some trauma that I need to deal with. So I dealt with it. I talked it out. You know, I did some, you know, practices to help me clear some of those things before I went back.
So if you take us back to when you were 10, was it when you had to leave? Do you feel like you understood what was happening? Because even, you know, from what I understand, not all of your family left, right? So only some of your family left while who stayed?
So my parents, my father owns a church, and my mother is part of the church, a singer in the church, and they're really like leaders in the community, you know. So when the war happened, they had an opportunity to leave as well, but they couldn't leave their people, you know. They didn't want to leave the congregation, so they ended up staying. You know, both of my parents stayed, my brothers stayed, and then some of the girls and one of my younger brother, we all came. So yeah, I didn't know until like as an adult, and it was like, oh shit, you went through war. Like it hits different once you get to, you know, you live on this side of the world, you get to see what human rights look like, you know, what human rights violations are, and then you get to process it. When you're going through it, you're just trying to survive, yeah. So I didn't really, you know, it was just abrupt. It was like, you know, I mean, we heard chatters of the war, like the adults would talk about it, and then I know they pulled us out of school like 3 months before the war came, and then, you know, went to Monrovia, the bigger city. And we were there at the church compound, and then, you know, the rebels came, and we had to migrate from there back to our home, and then just migrating from there back to the home. It was just so much that happened within that.
Yeah, I can only imagine.
Whew, I never talked about this stuff openly like this before. So
Yeah, thank you for
wow.
being vulnerable. I mean, especially considering what's happening in the world as we speak, you know. And did you understand that you were saying, like, essentially bye to your parents? Did you feel like you were leaving your parents, or?
Yeah, I think I felt that, but, you know, in Africa, like, America is such a big deal. Yeah. So just like the joy of like being able to come to America definitely took over. And like I said, a lot of these things, once I got here, it was just, because my daughter is 14 now, and I was 12 by the time I got to America. And I remember just being around her when she turned 12, and I was like, damn, this is how old I was when my whole life got changed, right? So, and you really think about it from that perspective, and it really is like, oh man, I'm going through some stuff, like, you know.
Yeah.
I've been through some stuff. I've adopted mothers along the way, you know, in the absence of my own mom, you know. The thing about, you know, coming from such strong foundation, such rooted foundation, right? And then you're floating out here in this big world, and there's nobody to blame for that, right? It's like if your mother abused you or something, and, you know, and you found escape from her, and you'd be like, oh, you know, she did this, and she was horrible, and this is why I was separated from my mother, but nobody did nothing. It just happened that way, you know. So when you don't have anywhere to place that disconnect, that lack of, you know, nurturing, you know, you just have to find it somewhere else. You have to find your resting somewhere else. And I was very fortunate enough to like meet a lot of amazing, I have a lot of older women in my life that are, you know, my friends. And when I was 22, I met my godmother, this woman named Inyame Selassie, when I was 20 actually. And she just changed my whole trajectory in life, and just, you know, became this mother figure, this nurturing person in my life that kind of stepped in the gap. Because my sister, my oldest sister that adopted me, by the time we all came here, she's like 30 something, and she's working 3 jobs to make sure that we're taken care of. So she couldn't really be there. So I would tell people by the time I was 12 years old, I was pretty much raising myself.
Can you imagine? Like,
no,
you know,
I can imagine. I lived it.
No, because I've had that experience where I see my daughter at like 14 or 16 or 11, and I'm like, oh my God, like I was that age when this was happening, and it's like, oh my, it's like this reckoning that you have of like the reality of what
like, how did I survive?
Yeah, and then it's like, ooh, good on you for surviving. So how do you feel like kind of that Liberian foundation and those values shaped you in your life?
I always knew that there was I always had a perspective of another world, right? So when things weren't aligning for me here, when things weren't clicking for me here, I didn't necessarily just take it on like what's wrong with me. It was more like, oh, this is how this world do things. And I come from a different world, so I have to balance myself out in that, right?
Wow.
Yeah.
I love that perspective. I feel like that's a blessing to have that, because one thing that you have that a lot of folks who are born here, African American, you know, our parents slave, you know, great grandparents slaves, we don't necessarily have that privilege of that connection. And so for you, like being able to see that, like you don't necessarily need to say, oh, I'm black, because you can say I'm Liberian. Right. I feel like that means so much, right? And when you think about how, you know, colonization works, and you know what, it's intentionally stripping you of the exact place, and identity that I can say I'm black, but what does that actually mean? What? You know, but when you can specifically know where you're from, I feel like, yeah, it gives you that power of like, even if this world feels a little strange, oh, I know, you know, it's different.
It's different.
It's a blessing.
No, I definitely recognize it as that. Now that I understand a little bit of history, we're in Black History Month, so it's just like understanding Black history, understanding African history, you know, it helped me realize like, oh, you do have a privilege. You do come with something that a lot of Black people in this country, you know, yearn for. And it's just like a place to belong in. You come from somewhere, you know, you have a language, I have an identity, you know, and, you know, so yeah, there's a level of confidence that comes with that.
Can you speak more to that? Because that's something that I feel like I've always recognized about you, is that even though you're saying like, you were technically undocumented for how long?
Yeah, so when I came to the States, I was a kid, and like I said, my sister was doing all the things, so to really be paying attention, making sure everything was going well, you know, she missed some steps in there, and by the time I hit 18 years old, I realized like, I couldn't get a driver's license, I couldn't actually get a job, because I was an undocumented immigrant in America. And I wandered a lot because of that. There was no real stability because you can't really, you know, you don't exist if you're not documented here, you know. So being grounded in my language, being grounded in my culture was just like, that was my identity because I didn't have any in America.
Yeah, you couldn't even adopt it.
Right. So, and I shared this before, I mean, you know, it helped me learn sovereignty. Right? Not having to attach yourself to any systems, you know. So it's just like, well, you're gonna have to figure this thing out because you gotta eat, right? So if you can't get a job, how else can you make money and keep your integrity? So yeah, it turned me into a magician.
Do say more.
Yeah, I realized like, okay, I have talents, you know, I've always cultivated my talents, you know, I make things, I sing songs, I do hair, I have clients here today, and you know, I remember the first time I put like 5 braids in somebody's hair and they give me $20, and I was like, like, word? I can do this? So it was like, oh shoot, that's income. That's where I can make money. Now I can hustle this. And I remember I always knew how to crochet, and I made a bra top for someone, and they gave me $50. And I was like, what? Like, I can make things and y'all will buy it? You know, and then, you know, I just kind of started living my life based on what I'm able to do, my capabilities, you know. If I can sing a song and you pay me for that, cool, let's do this, you know. And just evolving my being in that way. Like I said, the whole keeping your integrity part when you don't have any of these systems or things like that to lean on, it's kind of, you know, it's kind of sketchy because you find yourself want to do a Nigerian scam real quick, but you know. But so yeah, I was committed to keeping my integrity intact, and I think that was all part of the magic to where I can exist in the world as somebody who, you know, technically was not supposed to have an identity. I could be so visible, but yet so invisible.
Yeah. But I feel like because you were directly connected to where you're from, you have family, you have your language, you have that culture, those roots. It's like you were able to maintain that sense of identity and belonging, even though you were, you know, stripped away from your actual home.
Yeah, going back, you know, being able to go back to Liberia after all of these years, it really did help because, you know, I know I was from a place, right? I know I was grounded in something, but I've been drifting for so long. Like even like my family, that they're around each other, the ones that are in the States, they're still around each other, so they get to talk to each other in language, they get to eat food, you know, share that culture still. And I was just like, yo, let's see what's out here, you know? So I've been separated from that for so long. So Liberia did feel like a dream to me, you know, until I went back, and it felt like I never left. That was the crazy part, man. Like after 32 years, you get off the plane and it's just like, I have this huge, important family in Liberia, and it's just like my name. You go, you see my last name, Kahnma, and everybody's like, oh, they stand up, you know, because, you know, my sister is like so huge, and we've built up that name. So just going and feeling a sense of belonging, it, you know, it was amazing.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
That's amazing. So when we think about home, right, and building a home away from home, you've been in Hawaii for 17 years now? right? So what has it been like for you to have to build a home away from home?
When I came back from Liberia the first time, when I just went in July, I was telling everybody like, "Ooh, I'm glad it was Hawaii I was coming back to." You know. So yeah, when I got off the plane, I came here with a boyfriend, and the plan was to stay here for a year and then go back to the mainland, go, whatever, adventuring around. And I got off the plane. We ended up in Waina, and I lived in Makaha for a little bit, and I just got off the plane and just felt like this is the closest I've felt to Africa since I left Africa. Right? So it was very easy to be here.
Yeah.
And I realized in the mainland, as a black person, you guys know about code switching, right? There's this level of code switching that you have to do to fit into that world over there. And I would tell people, like, I code switched like 2 times. I code switched into African American, then I code switched into white people world. I didn't have to do none of that when I got here. I can show up as my authentic African self, and it was closer to the culture here than, being anything else. So I just had to show up, and it worked. It loved me, and I love them, and I love this land, and it's been so gracious to me.
So how do you define home then?
Who just said it was from their mother's womb? Like, something like, well, I don't know. I'm not from here. Hawaii definitely has held me, and made me feel safe for the last 17 years. But home is a feeling, man. It's a feeling, and I felt it when I went home. It's just where you feel like you belong.
Yeah. I remember you've told me like multiple times that your mother prayed for you every day, right? So even though you were away from your mother for so long, you knew that she was praying for you every day. What has that meant for you?
Whew. So I just heard this story recently when I went. My mother has 12 children, and I just learned that her mother had 13 children, and 12 died. And she made a promise that she would have all her mother's children back. Yeah. So she had 12 children. My oldest sister is 67 years old. I'm one of the youngest. I'm 45. My brother's 44. We're all still alive. And my mother said her prayer was never to bury any of her children, because her mother had to bury so many of her children. So every night she prays for all her children by name, and the prayer is that she don't ever want to bury any of her children. So I don't know, I feel like that's fuel, that's been, like, I tell people my life is 80% grace, 20% effort, right? And that 80%, I feel like my mother's prayers take a big part of that.
Ooh, yeah. Gratitude to your mother for...
And then I started to say, if my mother's praying for me every day, what stops me from praying for my children every day? Yeah, so I started to incorporate that in my life too.
Mm-hmm. Great segue into, in all of this, you somehow became a mama.
Yeah.
In all this transition and all of the things, you then also chose to become a mother. So can you share what that journey was like, becoming a mother, away from your mother, away from home?
Oh man, I think by the time I hit like 28, 29, like when I was 27, I was diagnosed with kidney cancer, right? And I went through this whole thing. This is when I first moved to Hawaii. And yeah, it took my left kidney out. And the doctors were like, it's possible that you may not have children, because of the surgery and yada, yada, yada. But like by at 28, 29, like my body was just like, I went to this lady named Diana Ostroff in Hawaii Kai, and she's a naturopath. And when I didn't know yet I had cancer, right? And she was doing acupuncture on me, and she was trying to figure out what was going on. And then she said, how old usually are the women where you come from when they have children? How old are they usually? And I said, they're pretty young. My mother had her, I think, like 15 or 16, And she was like, maybe your body's confused. Yeah, and it resonated when she said that. She was like, maybe your body was ready to produce a child, and you're now at 28 and you're probably wired to have a baby at a certain age. I don't know what comes with that. I don't know any science behind any of that. It just resonated. So by the time I was like 28, 29, my body was craving for a child, like craving for a child. And I went through the cancer thing. They was like, we don't know if you're gonna have a baby, but we'll see. And I met my daughter's father, like doing his hair. I went to go visit my family in Pennsylvania, and my sister has a salon, so I was doing hair in the salon, and he walked in, and the first thing he said to me was like, oh my God, I want you to have my baby. And I was like, really? Like, and he was so cute, like he was so fine, like. So I'm like, that's some alignment right there, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm like, okay, so I did his hair. I literally felt something happen in the universe. God was directing that whole thing. I fell in love with that man in like an instinct. We talked about we're gonna have a child. I was literally coming back to Hawaii the next day. I was like, I'm gonna send for you. You gotta come and live in this peaceful place I live in. I went back in April to get him. I spent a whole weekend in a hotel with him before my family knew I was there. First time I was intimate with that man, I got pregnant. First time, right? So my body was like, it's time for a baby. Yeah, so yeah, then I got pregnant. I was like, oh shit, what do you know? I can get pregnant. Yeah, and then I got pregnant, and it just, my life changed, and then whatever wool was over my eye in order for this thing to happen, for she to be brought into this world, it was like, that was about the baby. It ain't him, he just needed to assist.
Thanks, come again.
Right, I mean, I tried, but it was so easy. It was so easy.
Oh yeah, don't come again. But then, that was not, I didn't even intend to say that. That's, yeah. I did not even intend that. Oh my God.
And that's all like it was just like, oh, you're meant for this. You're made for this. You're supposed to have, be a mom. Right? So it's just like, my favorite thing in the world is being a mother. It's what I do best.
Oh, I love that. Congrats on being a mama. So how has like your, because I feel like the storyline that I'm kind of hearing is this like, almost like split between worlds, right? Yeah. Like you're in your own world, but then you have your home world, and then you're in this world having to navigate the multiple worlds here. So what was it like, raising your children and,
Like I said, I didn't have my mom by the time I was 10 years old, that wasn't a thing really. I don't know if I really had any parenting style that stuck in there. I just know like the more whole of a person I became, then like an authentic mom showed up to where I didn't have to have a way. We just kind of be and flow into like whatever. Like my whole thing was just like, I try to get out of the way as much as possible so they come out so I can see who they are. And I didn't want to create little clone versions of myself, so it's just like, how do I pull back enough to where they show me who they are, and that's been pretty cool. They're amazing kids.
Yeah, I love that. And you tend to advocate and are like a big proponent of the village, right? So, you've navigated being with someone, you've navigated single mamahood, right? I feel like you've created a strong community where you are, but you are a big proponent of the village. So can you just share a little bit about that value system, or like maybe even that hope that you have?
Yeah, I mean, we're not supposed to do this alone, I was like, raising a child is not a two-person job, it's not a one-person job, it's a job of a village, like in order for us all to come out of it whole and we raise a balanced, healthy child, it takes all of us, because what I don't have, you have, and I want my child to have that too, so it's like being open to that. When I was in Liberia this last time, it's just so easy. It's hard to explain something that just is, right? It's just, if there's a baby there, everybody's taking care of that baby. You don't even know who the baby is for, right? But if the baby's there, it's just like now it's your responsibility to take care of this baby. And my sister, I was at my sister's house, and there, there's kids in the neighborhood, and this, young girl, she's about in her 20s, and she had a baby, about a year old, not even, about 6-7 months. And she would just come to my sister's house just because she wants to be a part. She wants to be around us, and she would cook food and wash our clothes and, that kind of stuff just to be around. And she kept, bringing her baby, and I just fell in love with this baby. Do you have a,
I do.
Yeah.
Let's see if I
No,
can
it's
get
not
it to
that
show
one. It's the one that's on my
there.
back. That one.
I gotta see
If it'll pop up on there.
oh, I might have to, you keep talking,
Yeah.
I'm gonna go turn it on.
So yeah, you fall in love with these children, and it's almost just like, in Africa, it's like if somebody knows my baby's name, my baby has a chance, to go to school, or my baby has a chance to know somebody in America. It's such a big deal, and but just seeing the way they take care of each other, like that girl doesn't really have to worry about that baby because everybody shows up, and I mean, I've been trying to do that here, and I have a village here for sure. Like I see some mamas here now where, we're being there for each other in that kind of way. Tia is here, and talking about a village, just going to Africa this last time, she just showed up and like, I'll pick the girls up from school, and just really showed up for me in a big way. Thank you, Tia.
She's gonna turn the lights a little bit so you can see. That's deep.
That's success. That's the baby that came, and that's literally my baby now, right? And it's just like, and I have this responsibility, and I feel this responsibility to look back and check on her and do what I can to take care of her, because it's like the bond was there, Yeah.
That's so beautiful. Can you share the story? You shared it a little bit last time. Honey, can you please turn the lights back on for me? Thank you. You shared the last time, like when we first did this, that after the first time that you went, can you tell us the story of like, was it your cousin or somebody who?
Oh yeah, like I have my niece with me. My niece has 2 children, and the whole time I'm there, she's just always there. Like, and her kids aren't around. I'm like, girl, where are your kids? Like, And she looked at me like it was such a strange question for her, like, because it's just like, of course my kids are taken care of if I'm here. She doesn't really have to worry about where her children are, because wherever they are, they're good, right? And I was there, and she's spending this time with me. So I just thought that was so cool that you can be so free in that. Like know that the community has your children, so where it's just like, I'm gonna dip for a little bit. Yeah. Every day for a little bit, yeah. And it was beautiful, yeah, it was beautiful to watch. But I really did fall in love with these children, and Liberia is such a raw place. Everybody's ready. I mean, things are changing around. The war has ended a long time ago, and the place is getting better. So everybody's trying to go back and do something. And I just look in these children's eyes, and there's just something in their eyes that's just like so much hope and beauty. And if I invest anything, it's just like, it has to be in them.
Can you share a little bit about, going back home after 32 years, was it? After 32 years, like, how has that changed you? Like, anything you want to share about the opportunity to go back?
Well, all right, so this is how I was explaining it. There was this video online some time ago with this man, and he was playing the violin on the subway, right? And he had a hat out, and I think he made like $40 or something like that playing the violin. And then later on that day, that same man had a concert at Carnegie Hall or something, right? And it was just like, he's this world-renowned violinist, but people didn't know that in the subway. And the moral of the story was like, you have to go where your value is recognized. And I feel like I've been playing the violin in the subway, and Carnegie Hall is waiting for me.
Damn. Drop the mic. Damn.
That's the revelation. It's just like, it's big. I feel like there's so much space for my dreams.
Yeah.
Like Hawaii has been so gracious and so amazing to me, but everything I am, I'm only that thing here in Hawaii. And it's just like this huge landmass, and it's just like, there's so much room.
Yeah. That's beautiful. I recently watched, I went to the African American Film Festival, and they were playing a documentary called The Space Race. And they were talking about the first, African Americans who went to space. And there was this one guy, I don't remember his name, but he was like, okay, I'm gonna go to space, and before I get there, I'm gonna study Africa, right? I'm gonna study where everything is, so that when I get into space, I can pick out where the countries are, right? So he did all the study, and then he gets up in space, and then he has this revelation, there's no lines. He couldn't figure out where was what because there are no lines. Yeah, there's no borders. And he's like, that is how it was supposed to be, how it is. And we're the ones that create these divides, these lines, these borders. Nope, this is mine, this is not yours. But I feel like everything that you just said just shows no, the world really is our oyster, right? The world is yours, the world is mine, but we're conditioned to think otherwise, right?
Yeah, you have to, be stationed somewhere. This is where, I've been feeling like floating in the world for the last, I do feel like some settling coming though. I do feel like, I'm grounded in myself, but I've been floating for a long time. Even being here on this island, I have this thing about buying nice dishes. I really want to buy nice dishes, but I've never felt like I belong anywhere to where I can keep nice dishes, right? Nice dishes, you don't move. You put them in a, what I'm saying? You put them in a thing and, they stay there. So I've been feeling like I need a chest to put my nice dishes in.
I like that, which means you need a house with a chest with
That's
nice dishes.
Permanent, right?
Yeah.
That's permanent. It's
yeah. I love that. So, Dee, what are you most excited about right now in this next chapter of your life?
Ooh, man. Expansion. I feel empowered. Just going back home, being able to, Africa is not cheap. I live in Hawaii. It's not cheap to go to Africa from Hawaii. And I've been able to do it 2 times in 6 months. How? I don't even know. But it lets me know that things are aligned now for big things to happen. So I feel really, I'm excited. I'm obedient. And just being aware of what's my next move. And not trying to force anything, but actually just wait for spirit to move me, because I feel like what's about to happen, I don't want no hand into I want it this way, because there's no way I can envision it that is going to be better than what God has in store for me.
Hey, that's so beautiful. So what would you say, what do you think your 90-year-old self would say to you today?
Ooh, my 90-year-old self, what would she say to me today? Oof. Damn, that's a long time to think ahead. I don't be thinking past the minute, Tiff. No, I don't know. I feel like my 90-year-old self would be able to kick it with myself right now.
Yeah. On a
lanai, and it's and we it won't be oh, here's my little 45-year-old self. It was just this is my homie.
Yeah.
I feel like I will be homies with my 95-year-old self.
I love that. Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you, Dee. Is there any final words or anything else that you would like to share with us today?
Oh man, just thank you for listening. Thank you for asking me about my story.
Yeah.
It feels good to talk about myself.
Yeah, we see you, we hear you, we love you, we appreciate you. I feel like since you went to Africa and came back, you have a different grounded presence. And I feel like you be glowing.
Thank you.
You're glowing. I feel like you feel more rooted and just like you said, confident.
Confidence. It's the confidence of knowing what you're standing on.
Ooh.
Yeah. I mean, even before I went back to Liberia, I've been here for 17 years. You're gonna go through stuff with people. I go through stuff. I went through my down times and stuff like that, and my ego would kick in a little bit and be like, I ain't getting on my knees for nobody. I ain't begging nobody for nothing, because I come from somewhere. You get arrogant in that way, but it's it's part of it. I can't never hit the ground. Like I can never fall on my face, you know, because I have such a strong foundation.
Yeah.
You know, so.
And you've said that before. You said that even though you kind of are the wanderer of the family, your family's always holding it down.
Yeah. They allow me room to take a risk because my family is there. I can never fall on my face. So I just take risk and end up in the middle of the Pacific Ocean with the most amazing people.
Yay. Oh, let's give it up for Dee. Thank you, Dee.
Thank you.
And thank you for bringing back this dress for me.
Yes. You're very welcome.
This is from Liberia, everyone.
Hey. I give a little Black History. That's what I do want to end with. It is Black History Month, and Liberia is very important to Black people in America. It's Black people that are from this part of the world. And Liberia was the country that the free slaves from America went back to and formed, right? So it was like supposed to be like this American state for Black people in Africa, right? Just to see if you bring Black people back to Africa, what they can do. But you know, the history is deep because there was indigenous people there before the free slaves came back, and there was always tension and all of those things because they brought back some of the practices of the slave masters and enslaved the indigenous people there. So it's always been this deep history with indigenous African people and African Americans, you know, free slaves that came back. So that's a little bit of Liberian history, and I do feel ever since I was like a kid, man, like, you know, no matter where I was. I remember it was like my 21st birthday, I was in a club somewhere and somebody handed me a microphone. I was like, my father got land in Africa. If you want to come back and find your roots, let's do this. And like, you know what I'm saying? So, and I've always felt like that. Marcus Garvey is my favorite, you know, Black leader, you know, and I've always felt like, you know, Liberia is a space for Black people to really find home and grounding and belonging. Yeah. So yeah, that's my truth.
Yeah, Dee. Thank you so much. Is there anything else you want me to play before? We're good? Okay. So Nicole is going to lead us in a little bit of movement. We're going to move our bodies, and then we're going to take a break, and then we'll come back and ask Dee some questions, yeah? All right.
I'm curious about your relationship with your Kahnma.
Wow.
That's a really open
Yeah. When I got back to Liberia, because you know, like you're in contact with, you know, phone calls, but my mother's a real, like you saw my mother, she's so African. She's like, you know, and I grew up in America. I have these American ways about me now, and all of those. And so there was it felt like a disconnect. It felt like I couldn't reach her unless I was where she was, right? And that's why like adopted mothers that fit the environment that I was in was able to give me what I needed for this, and because she wouldn't even know what to give me for this environment, right? So when I went back and because I saw her over the years, she would come and visit here and there to the mainland, and I would go see her, but being there, it was just like everything got reignited again. I felt like a little girl. Like she has this thing where it's just like the minute she sees, she'll be like, oh, come, and you know, you sit on her lap, you know. So it was just nurturing that little girl side of me again that was tucked away because I had to grow up so quickly. Yeah, so I feel like because I was around all my siblings and I'm one of the youngest, so they treat me like one of the youngest, right? So even just the reality of what that was, it just brings me back to feeling like a child, like nurtured, you know.
How old is your mother?
My mother is 81.
Wow. Beautiful.
My father is 93.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Who else has a question?
So I'm going to go the other way with your descendants. Since I've become a mother, a lot more like Filipino-ness comes through, like in the way that I call them. You know, in the way I call them certain words. I'm wondering, and since you've been back to Liberia, like, how do you weave your culture with your motherhood, and what are you passing down?
Like I said, because, you know, I was ripped from my culture so early on and I just had to adapt to wherever I was to survive, there's not a lot that I was able to share, as far other than just my being, you know, because I just, you know, I move in who I am. But like, even I regret not having like African food, because that's all I ate was African food, and there's something so like nurturing about eating food from your country. So I never, like my kids have more values, and traditions from here, because this is where they are. But like you said, when, I think we're the most authentic with our children. So when there's like a moment where I'm angry and I find myself, my Liberian accent will come out, and then look up like, what the hell? Like, I didn't understand nothing you just said. So I think authentically it will come out, like, like, girl, you don't, so yeah, when I'm angry, it comes out, which is interesting. Yes, when I'm passionate. Thank you, sis. When I'm passionate, it comes out. Yes, you have a question? Oh, yay, Weddy has a question.
What was like the energy that you felt when you were at Liberia?
I felt loved, overwhelmingly loved. I felt held, and I felt like it's a place where my children can feel the same.
Thank you, baby. Anyone else got questions?
So, mine is about your child's names because they're very interesting. So, what prompted you to think and name them and what it means about them?
Good question. So my oldest daughter is Vama, and Vama is my oldest sister, the one that raised me. That was her African name. Her name is Mary, because the missionaries came in and changed her name to Mary. But her African name was Vama, right? So it was just like almost like, owed back to her, like to saying thank you. It was one reason, and then another reason, the main reason, and then when it dawned on me that was my sister's name as well, but I got the name for this reason. Is like, I told you right before I got pregnant with her, I went through cancer, didn't know if I was gonna have a baby. And then when I got pregnant with her, my body felt, it's the most healed I felt since I went through that thing. I felt like, being pregnant was healing me more. So Vama means medicine woman. She's like, she was my medicine woman, healing me from the inside,
What it means, medicine woman?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, Vama means medicine woman, yeah.
Where's Vama?
Yeah, that's my little medicine woman. She really was. She heals me from the inside. And then what am I, is, I was in so much music when I was pregnant with her. Her dad and I were in a band together called Jukebox City. We had songs on the radio. We were nominated for Hoku Awards. And she was just I was dancing and singing on stage. So I was like 9 months pregnant, and what am I means woman of music. So it was just like she was wrapped up in so much music. Yeah. Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions? Go for it.
I would love to hear you speak to us on creating community, because that's something that I think is a gift and a skill, and it's pretty amazing for us to see and witness. With you having had that experience and foundation, it was a translatable skill. So my question is, how any words of wisdom you can share with us who may not have that same foundation, how to create a sense of community without knowing what that even is and means when, like for example, someone like me, I was even raised in, it's just like, watch your back, there's like, gunshots, this and that, somebody stealing your clothes, your shoes off your feet in your own neighborhood. So if you could speak on how to create a sense of community.
This is what I've learned. I feel like when you give yourself enough time to deal with your stuff, your own stuff, right, and you show up in community spaces, there's not anything people have to filter through in order to reach you. right? So you're able to show up, and people, there's a level of comfort because they don't meet you with their stuff because they know that your stuff isn't leading the way, right? So I feel like there's a sense of like this, self-refinement, self-preservation, self-mastery that I put myself through, so I'm grounded in myself. Even, like I was in a room with some African American women like a while ago. We were in Puerto Rico, and they were talking the same thing about like the privilege that I have to say I'm from somewhere, right? And I remember looking at them and be like, yo, I'm trying to meet my family in the stars. I'm trying to, what I'm saying? Like, I don't know how much I'm attached to this, the earthly things, even though we have to be grounded here. But I feel like there's a level of spirituality that you have to hold community spaces, to hold space for a lot of people. You have to be good with yourself, right? So because people come with projections, people come with their stuff, and once you're grounded in yourself, none of that stuff touches you, and you're able to hold the space that people need. I feel like, I don't know if there's a formula. I just think like being good with myself allows me not to take on nobody else's stuff, not to throw my stuff on anybody else, and then we can commune in a stuff-free zone.
Yeah. So Dee's gonna close us out with a song. I gotta find mine. Here it is.
So I wrote this song. It's just like, a regular pop song, whatever. But I usually work with producers, and it's like I was in this funk where, I wasn't reaching any producers, and I was like, I was feeling all this energy to write, and I was like, well, let me see what I can do if I make my own beat, So I got on the computer, and then I made a beat, and then I wrote the song, and I recorded it, and I mixed it, and I did the whole thing. So this is called For My Love. You can buy me diamonds, you can buy me pearls, designer clothing, dress me up, material girl, private jets, trips around the world. I'm not impressed at all, said I'm not impressed at all. Sweet, sweet talking, baby, baby, all day. I hear you saying for my loving you go pay. Could you afford attention when I mention? You gotta download it, At least keep the song on. No. There you go, files.
Okay, wait, let me go to files. Here we go.
Rewind! Yeah!
Let's do that again.
We're not sorry.
How about we clap? Hey.
You can buy me diamonds, you can buy me pearls, designer clothing, dress me up, material girl, private jets, trips around the world. I'm not impressed at all, said I'm not impressed at all. Sweet, sweet talking, baby, baby, all day. I hear you saying for my loving you go pay. Could you afford attention when I mention my emotions? Holding intentions, elevations to new dimensions. Penny for my love, don't cost a penny for my love. Penny for my love, don't cost a penny for my love. I need your presence from my love. Be attention with my love. Penny for, it don't cost a penny for my love. You can say what you want about humility and hard work, but all of those things really goes a long way. My father once told me, it's always better to be people rich, yeah? You can buy me diamonds, you can buy me pearls, designer clothing, dress me up, material girl, private jets, trips around the world. I'm not impressed at all, said I'm not impressed at all. Sweet, sweet talking, baby, baby, all day. I hear you saying for my loving you go pay. Could you afford attention when I mention my emotions?
Holy intentions, elevations to new dimension. Penny for my love, I cost a penny for my love. Penny for my love, I cost a penny for my love. I need your presence for my love. Be consistent with my love. Penny for my, it don't cost a penny for my love. 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 I need your presence for my love. Be consistent with my love. Penny for my, it don't cost a penny for my love.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dee. Thank you all so much for being here. This is like amazing. You know, we really do all of this for the next 7 generations. So when Sis mentioned that, I'm like, yes, right? The next 7 generations and beyond. Everything that y'all are doing for yourselves to heal, to be whole, to live aligned to the energy of your soul directly impacts the next 7 generations and beyond. So please know that each one of you matter. Us healing as mamas matters, and that's why we keep showing up. All right? Hey! Let's take one group picture and then we dance, okay?